So, should we actually be afraid of artificial intelligence? It's a question that, probably keeps a lot of us up at night. For so many people, our first introduction to AI was from the movies, right? We're talking Terminator, The Matrix, where AI was always the bad guy, turning on its creators. And it wasn't just Hollywood. Even brilliant minds like Stephen Hawking warned us about the potential dangers. But here's the thing. AI isn't science fiction anymore. It's literally all around us. So what's the real story behind all the hype and all the fear? Let's dig in.
On the one hand, you've got this pop culture image of conscious evil robots. And on the other, well, you have the reality of AI in your daily life. It's the YouTube algorithm that probably recommended this explainer to you. It's the personal assistant on your phone. And it's the chatbot you might use for work. Now, they're powerful for sure, but they're hardly a Skynet-level threat, you know?
And that really brings us to the main question here. What is the fundamental difference between the AI of our imagination and the AI that we're actually using every single day? Well, to find that out, we've got to look under the hood.
To really get to the bottom of this, we first have to understand how an AI program actually learns. And here's a little secret. It has a lot more to do with just recognizing patterns than it does with genuine understanding. Okay, so at its very core, AI is all about giving a machine the ability to learn from data. So instead of just following a super rigid set of pre-written instructions like a normal computer program, an AI can adapt and figure out how to do new things it wasn't specifically programmed for. Let's use a really simple example to explain this. Imagine we want to train an AI to identify a bird. Okay, so first, programmers define the key features, things like wings, feathers, and a beak. Then they assign an initial weight to each feature, which is really just a number that represents how important it is. The AI then looks at a picture and calculates a score. Now, if it gets it wrong, let's say it sees a penguin and says, nope, not a bird because it can't fly. A human steps in and corrects it. The AI then adjusts its own internal numbers and does this whole process again and again and again with thousands, sometimes millions, of images. So the AI might start off thinking that the feature can fly is super important, but after getting corrected on that penguin, it learns to lower the importance or the weight of that feature. It starts to realize, okay, an 80% match on my other criteria is probably good enough to call it a bird. This constant, subtle adjustment is the absolute heart of how AI learns.
And this brings up a massive point. The AI never actually understands what a bird is. It has zero concept of flight or nests or nature. To the AI, a bird is just a collection of numbers and weighted values that it associates with pixels in an image. It is pure pattern recognition, not comprehension.
Another really key thing to get is that this process needs an absolutely enormous amount of data. I mean, we're talking millions upon millions of photos. Think about it. Every time you tag your pet on social media, you are essentially providing free training data for an AI somewhere, helping it learn what a dog or cat looks like through constant human feedback. And finally, even after all of that training, our bird identifying AI can only do one single thing: identify birds. That's it. If you show it a picture of a cat and ask what it is, it's completely useless. Each AI is trained for a very, very specific task. It's a specialist, not a generalist. Now, this whole automated learning process, where the AI is constantly tweaking itself, leads to one of the biggest and most fascinating challenges in the entire field today. It's something known as the black box problem. There's a famous real-world example that just explains this perfectly. Researchers trained an AI to identify wolves, and it seemed to be working flawlessly. But when they actually dug into it, they found out the AI wasn't looking at the wolves at all. Because most of its training photos happened to show wolves in the snow, it had simply learned to associate snow with the word wolf. It was a snow detector, not a wolf detector. And that right there is the essence of the black box. The AI's internal logic becomes so complex and layered after all that training that even its own creators can't fully trace why it made a specific decision. It saw a pattern, snow equals wolf, that a human would never think to use, which makes it incredibly difficult to fix when something goes wrong. And this problem gets really serious when the AI learns from our own flawed human data. For example, a company used an AI to screen job applicants. They trained it on their past hiring decisions. But because the company had historically hired mostly men for that role, the AI just learned the pattern it was shown. It didn't invent a bias, it just perfectly mirrored the one that was already in the data. It basically concluded that male names were a key feature for a good candidate. So,
Here's the crucial point to take away from this. The AI has no concept of right or wrong. It only knows patterns. The responsibility to make sure the training data leads to the right outcome, and not some unintended, skewed one, falls completely on the humans who build and use it. It's on us.
Okay, so now that we've got a handle on the basics of how AI learns and some of its pitfalls, let's take a quick look at the different types of AI you're probably using every single day, maybe without even realizing it.
Most of the AI you interact with falls into just a few major buckets. You've got natural language processing, or NLP. That's what lets Siri and Alexa understand what you're saying. Then there's generative AI. That's the creative one. It makes new stuff, like the text you get from ChatGPT. And computer vision is what your phone uses for face unlock. See? Each one is a specialist. This process also shows how you can pit different AIs against each other to get a result. It's pretty wild. To create a convincing deepfake, one AI, the creator, tries to make the most realistic fake video it can. A second AI, the detector, is trained to do nothing but spot fakes. The creator uses the detector's feedback to get better and better in this constant cycle until the video becomes almost impossible to tell from the real thing. And this brings us full circle, right back to where we started, back to that original fear. With technology this powerful, could AI ever become that super intelligent villain we're so used to seeing in the movies?
Well, to answer that, it's super important to know that every single AI that exists today is what we call weak or narrow AI. Remember, the specialists designed for one single task. The big dream in the field is strong AI, or artificial general intelligence, which would have human-like adaptability. Most experts think that is still decades away, if it's even possible at all. And then way beyond that is the purely speculative super AI. And that's the source of our sci-fi nightmares. So while you've got figures like Elon Musk warning about the long-term potential danger of a super AI, a lot of experts argue that the more immediate, more realistic risk isn't the AI itself. It's how we, humans, choose to use the powerful but narrow AI tools that we already have for things like fraud, misinformation, or social influence. The key takeaway here is actually pretty simple. Today's AI has no consciousness. It has no self-awareness, no feelings, and it certainly doesn't have human desires like greed or a lust for power. It can't decide to be a villain because it can't decide anything at all. It's just a very, very complex pattern-matching machine, not a thinking being.
So, in the end, AI is a tool. Yeah, an incredibly powerful one, but a tool nonetheless. And just like any tool, it can be used for amazing things or for terrible things. So maybe the most important question we should be asking isn't what will AI do to us, but rather what will we choose to do with AI?